Hey, so if you're seeing this, you know me. And if you, maybe you don't, my name is Ralph. I am a human. I've been a lot of things. As my dog makes a lot of noise. And mostly I am a child of God. And there's a lot of different sides to me. And so based on how you see me, how you know me, how you've entered into my life or I've entered into yours, my presentation may look a little different, right? For some of people, they knew me when I was a suit and tie Ralph, and some knew me as on the streets Ralph, and some knew me as Nomad Ralph, and some knew me as Father Ralph. Um, some knew me as Writer Ralph. I've been a lot of different things. And I've tried a lot of different things, and I've been searching and questing, and I've been on this journey, which truly is a healing journey. I know sometimes we use that word and it seems a little bit like a cliche, but for me, this has truly been a healing journey. And there's so much that I needed to heal from that I don't want to get caught up in that, because there's going to be time and opportunity to tell that story of how I got from there to here. But today, I'm just a child of God. And in some ways, I feel like I've been running away from that phrase my whole life. And I've been doing different things and being different people and code switching and doing all of that to try to run away from the universal truth. And part of that is because of trauma, and part of that is because of abandonment, and part of that is because of imposter syndrome, that how could something so magical and important love a wretch like me? And there's a poem that I wrote a few years ago called "I Destroy Things." And in it, I talk about my penchant history of self-destruction, my inability to believe that I was worthy of the grace of God, so much so that I would intentionally set things on fire instead of seeing them through, because there's no way that they could be successful because I'm a part of them. And this is not something I realized at the time. This is something that has come through a lot of meditation, a lot of self-reflection. But I think part of what is important in this moment, and in moments like this when life all makes sense, is to recognize the impact and the devastation that we can cause when struggling with mental health, when struggling with a connection to source and spiritual identity, when struggling. And I, for me, have found that my mental health and my spirituality are inextricably linked. I've seen them as kind of separate things, but the truth of the matter is that I am not at my best mentally if I am not grounded spiritually. And I've had to learn that by detaching myself and disconnecting from the world, which I've done for much of the past few years. I've been a bad human to myself and to some people. And I've experienced bad humanity that has confirmed all of the things that I think about the way the human condition works, which is that it doesn't, and that people will naturally and ultimately harm you. So do the harm first. And so 5 years ago, I really started a few years before that, but it came to this apex 5 years ago when I was completely spiraling out of control. My mind was on, had been on this slow leak, but at that moment, exactly around this time 5 years ago, I ended up into a state that put me in the hospital. And that time in the hospital, if you know this, if you've seen any of my content over the past few years, but my time in the hospital was about making sure that I was not a threat to myself or others. And because I thought that I was truly going to die, I started recording myself. Sometimes they were messages to myself, sometimes they were messages to my kids. And I thought in some like weird time, found footage sort of way that someone would find this content and would be able to make sense of why I was no longer here. But more on that in a second. When I end up in the hospital, I asked my doctor to if he wanted to know how I got here. Because when I had talked to the cops that led me to the hospital, they wanted to know how I got here, or maybe I was desperate to tell them. And so after being in the hospital for a couple days, I said, and had my first kind of full visit with a doctor after I had slept for a really long time. I was like, do you want to know how I got here? And they were like, no, we don't. Not that we don't. That was for later. Because what was important at that time, as is most important when you're acutely hospitalized, is to make sure that you're not a threat to yourself or others. And so I was like, okay, well, that's cool. But I needed to know the answer. If you know me, you know that I do deep dives into shit all the time. I love it. It's actually literally my favorite thing to do is to immerse myself into new pieces of content or book or movie or show and what I learned from that experience was that just being in the hospital wasn't enough. I needed to get to the core of how I got there. And it wasn't about anything that was happening in my life at that moment, because my life at that moment wasn't bad. But it was about the thing that we know if you've been in therapy in any way, or if you're a therapist or whatever, you work in the field, you know that the thing that has to happen in order for you to truly get over the trauma that you feel is you got to go back and heal your inner child. You got to go back and heal your inner child. And my inner child was broken. My inner child was broken. And how that kind of manifested itself was that I began hearing voices. And at first they were nightmares that turned into daymares. And I heard both demons, and then I started hearing from my angels. I started hearing voices that were there kind of confronting me. There's a piece called Angel and Demon, in which they were literally a conversation that was happening in real time. Over and over and over again. And those demons were there to destroy me. I know that. And I will later learn, as my story unfolds and is told, I'll later learn that, depending on who you believe, that this is a long-standing curse. That the mental illness in my family, which goes back generations, is a long-standing curse by demons. If you believe in that sort of thing. I know, whether it was demons or my own mind, that there was something that had been blocking me from my true divinity. And my time in the hospital gave me the most extraordinary gift. A woman whispered into my ear, who was absolutely an angel, on my first day at the big ward, God is greater than your storm. And even now, every time I say it, I smile, because the truth of the matter is that I did not think that. I thought that God had abandoned me years ago. And that the abandonment I felt from my parents, and the disinterest I felt from my mother, and my sexual assault when I was 13, and my queerness and my weirdness and the gap in my teeth, and all of that was a response from God telling me that he didn't love me. And before the hospital, I attempted to silence these voices with drinks and drugs and sex and smut. But I never had the opportunity to say to myself in conversation with my divine oneness, what does my inner child need to heal? What does my inner child need to let go of the past and actually live? Actually live. I don't think I had ever actually lived. Not on my own terms. I was 48 years old before I ever lived by myself. Is that living? I mean, no parent, no family, no family, no roommates, no partner. Every choice I had made has been because of someone else or something else. I've lived my life in crisis. And when I was actually able to finally not live in crisis, when I had a big house and beautiful kids and a wife and a car, multiple cars, is when my mental illness started to fail me. That all of this couldn't be mine. All of this couldn't be fucking mine. But every choice I made, every decision I made, rightly or wrongly, was not made by the inner child that was wild and free. It was made by the inner child that was terrified and alone and broken. Layer on that an inability of our culture to be able to talk about mental health, then layer on that the shame that I felt about being poor, being queer, the shame I felt about being sexually assaulted, the shame I felt about not having foundational love from a mother or a father. The shame I felt when I was told that I was sexually assaulted because I was punished by God. And then the performative societal things that says men have no feelings. Do not share your feelings. When I was 8 years old, I was jumping double dutch, and my father, who I'd only seen up until that point twice, came up behind me and pushed me onto the ground and saying, "I didn't make no faggot." What a thing to say to a kid. What a thing to say to a kid. And when I was sexually assaulted, I thought, they knew. They must have known. Why else could that have happened to me? And so every decision I made, the rage that built inside me, the relationships I had, good and bad, personal and professional, were all made by that wounded child. They were all made by that wounded child. They were not made by the person that I most want to be and that I'm not quite there, but I am motherfucking doing the work. But I also have to apologize because I have been incredibly selfish these past couple of years. Because I know that I hurt people. I know that in protecting my inner child and standing up for my inner child, I hurt people. I hurt my children because I haven't been there in the way that I want to be. I've hurt their mother, who is the most extraordinary mother on the planet and certainly doesn't need my help, but she does need my support, and I haven't been there. I apologize to the projects that I've worked on that I was unable to finish. I apologize to the people of the Mirror Lounge Collective that took a chance to believe that the professional beauty industry could be inclusive, equal, and well. And to the recipients of the Changemaker Awards, I let you down. And I'm sorry. And I apologize. And it's why projects like Sharp Scissors, which is to look at mental illness in the professional beauty industry, is so important. And why I did those interviews a couple of years ago to talk to beauty professionals about their mental health. And then my imposter syndrome made me think, who are you to do this? Who are you to do this? I'm a child of God. And I apologize to the people that I've lost. Not all of them. I apologize to my relationships with some of my oldest friends at Infused Supper Club. I apologize to my clients that took chances on me. I apologize to myself. I apologize to myself because, as smart as I like to think I am, because I've lived, because I'm as smart as I think I am, I couldn't figure out, my mind couldn't figure out the most simple thing, that in order to live a life of justice and truth for yourself, you can't live it here. You got to live it here. This is where it's at. And I've made a lot of noise, when I'm at my best, I am this Ralph, right? I can do that. I can literally let my hair down now. But inside is where the battle has been waging. Inside is where the struggle has been happening. And I want you to know that I want you to know that I've done some amazing things in my life, in my career. I've traveled, I've eaten, I've loved and been loved, even when I didn't always appreciate it or didn't give love in the right way. And the harm that I caused, if I caused any harm, wasn't me. It wasn't the me that I want to be. It was a version of me. And that was what I showed you. Depending on how I met you and where I met you, I showed you a version of me. The me that I thought you needed instead of the me that I needed to be. I hid myself in the shadows. I hid my sexuality. I hid my drinking. I hid my cannabis use. I hid. I hid. And I never had a problem with drugs or alcohol. But I did have a problem with self-harm, with lowering my vibration, with being less than people expected of me, but more importantly, less than what I expected of myself. I was weak. I was weak. And I think one of the things of why I wanted to record this instead of writing it which is my preferred method of communication, is because I don't want to be a fucking coward. The world is filled with cowards. I didn't want to hide behind ink the way I've always done, my safe place. Part of me being better is being all the way better, is being all the way healed. And to let people inside the mind madness. I said earlier that I've been recording myself at those because I thought I was going to die. And that has continued throughout this whole journey. And so I've, collected this 5 years of video and audio notes, and they're going to be released in a project called Soul Indigo. And it's a way to look at the path that I've been on, the path of mental health and spirituality, and share that. Because there are so many of us that do not understand what it looks like from the inside. And so my gift is to let you in on my curse. And I won't get into the details of how that's going to happen, but it's part of a conversation starter that allows us to open up how we talk about mental health, how we talk about spirituality, how we talk. All of the things that I did to sell, all of the things I've sold, to sell fundraising, to sell beauty products, to sell home security systems. Everything that I have done has been for this moment, because there is nothing else more important for me than to understand the spiritual journey that I have been on and the transformation that my connection to my source has happened. There's nothing more important to me than telling you the story of what can happen when you let angels into your life. And when you move from a place of despair to a place of possibility. There is nothing more important than that work. And in order for you to see me and believe me today, I need to let you inside. I want to tell you how I got there. And I want to tell you why it's important. And I hope what I'm able to do is to talk to someone and stop them from being there. That's the real shit. I've used to wake up every day hating myself. Every day. I used to make love hating myself. I've stood on the NBA Finals floor as confetti is coming down, hating myself. And I cannot tell you, those are some of the good things. I cannot tell you some of the places that God has pulled me from. Well, I can. You'd be shocked at some of the places that the hand of the divine has pulled me from. Only but for God's grace am I here. And when I speak about God, I am talking about the universal divine essence that's between you and your source, as unique as a fingerprint. It's not about, one thing it is absolutely not about is that it's not about religion. It's not about religion. I think we need a lot less religion and a lot more God. We need a lot less religion and a lot more of people deciding what faith and belief looks like for them. I did an interview with a coach, and she said to me that she had this vision that we always talk about representing God, representing our faith. And she had a vision in which she was told we have to represent God. We have to represent faith. It needs to be as individual as a fingerprint, because what you need from your source is different from what I need. And my God is always open, always listening. And he's listening in my voice. So this is a journey to represent God and represent myself. And I won't apologize again. But I will introduce myself. My name is Ralph Bryant. I'm a queer man. I'm 53 years old. I have two extraordinary boys. I'm a writer, storyteller, podcaster. I'm a dreamer. I'm a lover, not a fighter. Most importantly, I'm a child of God. And I love you. Peace.